it's pretty cool to see what people can do with the platform that gives them the flexibility.
99% of hacks are not someone was super clever and found an exploit and got into the site that way. It's like you used this password somewhere else and they just used it here and it worked.
We want to take care of all the technical burden for hosts, so that way they can focus on their product and then serve, their hosting customers.
Our goal is to prepare. All the sites should be as prepared for traffic as if every single day was election day.
Welcome to Impressive Hosting with Jesse Friedman. I am not Jesse Friedman. I am Joshua Goode. At the time of this recording, Jesse's on a sabbatical and graciously asked me to take the reins of the show while he's away. So for the next however many episodes, I'll be attempting to fill some impressive shoes. If this is your first time listening to the show, we're dedicated to uncovering the core tenets of what makes great, and dare we say impressive, WordPress hosting, as well as a greater ecosystem around it. Before we dive in, be sure to check out impressive.host. That's where you can find and comment on previous episodes, ask follow-up questions, submit questions for future guests. And you'll also find all of our links to like, follow, and subscribe wherever you listen. Today's guest is Claudiu Lodromanean. He's going to fill us a little bit more in on NewsPack. He was in our previous episode and we kind of left it on a cliffhanger on a few things. So brought him back here. We're going to delve into some more technical items, maybe a little product stuff. Again, NewsPack is the platform, and an impressive platform at that, for news, empowering news orgs by giving them the tools and service to thrive. And Claudiu has been working on NewsPack since the beginning. He has helped architect, develop, and launch and scale the platform. So he is the perfect person, based on the last conversation I just had with him. He's the best one to fill us in on how they deliver impressive hosting. Thanks again for joining us for another episode. We kind of left on we kind of got an idea of what NewsPack was in the previous one. And we left on some kind of opportunity to delve into the technical world a little bit more, maybe a little bit of product stuff too. I think first, if you want to reintroduce yourself, Claudiu.
I lead engineering at NewsPack. Been doing it since NewsPack has started. NewsPack's about 6 years old now. Grown pretty rapidly. Now we host over 330 organizations all over the world, all different sizes, all different business models. The main thing they got in common is they're trying to get the news out there.
Yeah, it's perfect. So again, as I said in the last episode, we really covered kind of what NewsPack is and what they're doing over there and all the cool stuff. And I got to slip in a little bit about WP Cloud. Not trying to make this a WP Cloud ad, but I think it's pretty cool to see what people can do with the platform that gives them the flexibility. It gives them a strong kind of base to build upon. And I think NewsPack is a shining example of taking things to the next level and really building out not just their product, but really customizing and addressing their hosting to fit the needs for a very specific audience that can also have very demanding sites, definitely around traffic. So I kind of hinted at in the last episode that we may get into a little bit about your prep and the work preparing for the 2024 U.S. elections. And I guess, you're probably dealing with elections all around the world with some of these other organizations. But let's focus on that for a bit. So tell me, I think you had mentioned you were preparing for 6 months or so ahead of the 2024 elections and kind of really tried to make sure your partners were in sites and hosting were ready for that. So why don't we delve into that? And I guess to start, what does that level of prep actually look like? What are you doing? What are you worried about? What are you trying to address?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. Elections in general, big, the sites have to stay online. Their reputation is on the line. Our reputation is on the line. It is sort of one of the things where it is so important that people can visit the site. It works. You're getting timely information. So we started at least 6 months beforehand, because with elections, they're so infrequent and each one is kind of different. So kind of have to prepare for the I want to say the worst, but you have to prepare for so much potential traffic. Like we have no idea. Is this site going to get 3 times the regular amount of traffic on election day? Is it going to get 30 times? Like back in the 2020 election, Bangor Daily News is one of the publishers hosted with us, and they were the first to call the election. Um, and it was 10 times the traffic. It was like a sort of ground or news breaking event. Um,
Yeah, yeah, and all at the same time, you obviously have the national in the United States, for example, and stuff. You have these national elections going on in some years, obviously very big, very important, very big to a lot of people. But you also are dealing with a lot of people are checking these sites for just the local elections, so you're getting the surge of traffic for all these different things, all the way down. I was checking some of my local news sites for just my local city council election. So you're getting this massive combination of traffic to all kinds of different posts and pages, all kinds of different things that are tracking those.
yeah, those are actually, if I could jump in, those are actually more important, more what people are reading these sites for than the national stuff.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
for national election results, those are all over TV, all over the giant websites. But
Right.
for mayoral races, for ballots, all of these citywide and statewide things, this is where the people go to find that information.
Right. 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 So I guess let's go into some of the prep work of that. What are some just guys from the base layer? In our previous episode, we talked about how important database optimization is and plugin optimization and making sure caching is good. So I imagine some of that's carrying over into some of this prep. But is there anything really notable or specific? Like, what are you actually doing in these 6 months leading up? Like, what are you doing for the platform, but maybe considering specific things for specific partners? What are some examples of what that looks like?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's ultimately the same as everything. Our goal is to prepare, all the sites should be as prepared for traffic as if every single day was election day.
Got it.
Because you never know, like, there was a political assassination in Haiti a while back, and that's not something you can prepare for.
Right.
But a site or an earthquake in BC, and one of our sites was getting 100,000 requests a minute.
Yeah. Wow.
Uh,
Yeah.
but our goal with the election was to get all of the sites to that point, um, so that we will be set for election and indefinitely going forward.
Yeah. That
So
way, any viral posts that take off or anything like that. Yeah. I can see that. There's definitely, from time to time, my local local city likes to appear in national news, and it's always interesting who breaks that thing, who causes some tweet or some post somewhere rather that gets shared and starts driving all that traffic out there to the news site that broke it first.
yeah,
So,
so the
um,
first step, for us
mhm.
was sort of monitoring, alerting, examining the server charts and the server graphs, because first you have to identify, where are the problems? Are there problems? Is it across all the sites, or is it just a handful of sites? Step one was analyze all of the server data that we can to identify where any performance problems are or where any caching issues are, things like this.
Yeah, because I can see, you have your product and you have these common like plugins, configurations that you're putting out, and so you may be able to find something in that will hopefully help all sites. But I imagine you have all hundreds of these organizations that they're all going to have little something unique about them in some way. They're doing their own thing, so. That sounds like a lot of work of making
Yes,
sure that,
yes.
that they're all kind of hopefully coming up to the same page, even though you have so many unique like sites.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. Our goal with all this is to keep the tech stack as standardized as possible. That's the only way to effectively do this across, more than 300 sites at this point. We're a small team. We like to say we're a shared service, not an agency. So we're not out there building bespoke software for each publisher. We are trying to build things in a general purpose way that works for, all the organizations on the platform. And that's key to being able to, find a performance issue, fix it. It helps 50 publishers.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
being WordPress, you do have a number of people that have like, one-off weird plugin,
mm-hmm.
which we then have to debug occasionally.
Yep. Yeah, I can imagine that pops up. So you've built some tooling. You mentioned server logs and everything else, but you've built some specific tooling, right? To like query like all of your sites, see what plugins or features are actually in use, so that maybe that can give you a little tip on like where you need to start at in some of the debugging. If that's correct,
Yes,
is that
yes,
giving
no.
you
So
any?
yeah, we
Okay,
have we have tooling that we can, query across all sites. Like which sites are doing a subscriptions type of revenue model, which sites are using MailChimp for their email service provider. Because, everything is in a general purpose way, but different organizations use different parts of it.
got it, got it. So
So that's important to being able to, find who is affected by something, or
right.
how many sites do we need to roll this out to.
Yeah. So on that, I mean, and we don't have to name too many specific names or anything, but has there anything specific that's been surprising or like a bit of a pain or something that y'all were able to fix, and then it helped all of the sites and maybe even non-NewsPack sites? Is there anything like that that's popped up anytime recently?
Yeah, so one of the ones during the election actually that we discovered as we were analyzing things was sitemaps. So if you go back to the previous episode, I was saying that some of these sites have hundreds of thousands of articles, um, and that presents unique scalability challenges. We discovered when a bot was going to the sitemap, it
Hmm.
analyzed the whole database,
Taking the
all,
whole, yeah,
100,000 articles, built the sitemap dynamically. So we implemented kind of a static sitemaps. So we generate them asynchronously. It's a static file. It causes no server load when it's accessed, and that like huge improvement in terms of like CPU usage and things like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's cool. That's a nice little finding. So that was that, and you said that was a little bit before the election or during your election prep. That's when that
Yeah,
was
it was
kind of
part of the
discovered.
election prep. So it was
Yeah.
one of the things that we noticed as we were analyzing the server data is like sitemaps take like 15 seconds to generate, and it causes like a spike of 10 CPUs whenever someone visits them. We should address that.
Okay, so moving on from like the sitemap thing, I think that's pretty cool. In the previous episode, you mentioned something about using Elasticsearch. With that, yeah, break that down for a bit. Is that 'cause I know search? And I assume that you're using this to address like searches on these news orgs, which search from me and analyzing hundreds and hundreds of sites myself, search can sometimes be a very cumbersome thing. It can also abuse a lot of CPU resources. There are different approaches you can take for a fast, low resource consuming search. I guess that's what you're doing with Elasticsearch in this case.
Actually, not quite, not quite. We
Okay.
do use it
All
for
right.
search. Like the Jetpack search works great, just replaces it. It's super fast. We're using it for complex filtering. So you go to
Ah,
a news site homepage, and there'll be, a section on the top, featured, and then, latest stuff in this category, latest stuff in this category. And there's all sorts of complex filtering and deduplication behind the scenes. Um, and this, like, it generates a really gnarly query, which, especially if you have 100,000 posts in the database and you need to find 4 posts that, from the last week that have 2 categories but not this tag, um,
yeah.
then it's not super scalable at all. So we actually use the same Jetpack Elasticsearch index from the search, but we hook into it. We use that to render different sections of the homepage, which is kind of a huge scalability boost compared to just doing
Yeah.
it straight with SQL.
No, that's big. Yeah, that's big. I appreciate that explanation there because yeah, I was not expecting that. But that totally makes sense because like search, which can be expensive depending on how you're approaching that. Anytime you're filtering content in that way. So we've covered a bit of your election prep. We've covered this pretty cool usage of Elasticsearch there. um, some of your tooling that you use to identify like what sites are doing, what sites are using, so you can narrow down and see if maybe a specific site needs some help due to some unique configuration. Maybe there's a broader thing that you can do to fix everything else. I imagine you're probably solving for a lot of other things, and a big thing that comes to mind is security. So, you
Yes.
know, uh, you're kind of like the de facto security team, right? For these
Yes, no,
publishers.
absolutely, yeah. Because, as I think I've said in the last episode, we essentially are the publisher's technical team. More than 90% of them don't have any technical person on staff, no developers on staff. So it's kind of on us to, one, make sure their sites are secure, and two, educate them around best practices. So making sure that their staff has 2FA sign in into
Got it.
their site, uh, monitoring and protecting against card testing attacks. So
Yeah.
news sites in general, they're big targets for a few reasons. First, they have a ton of reach. A lot of people read these. So, spammers want to get their stuff on there for the
Mm-hmm.
SEO and for the eyeballs. As well, they have a lot of e-commerce features. So, abilities to donate, to sign up for a membership, to buy merch. And this makes them a target for the more e-commerce type of security issues. So, card testing attacks, card stealing attacks, any sort of this kind of thing. So we have to make sure the sites are secure and stable across all fronts.
Yeah. Yeah. So everything from you mentioned 2FA, um, kind of, I guess, strong passwords key, even if you have multi-factor authentication and stuff there. Um, any other kind of specific things, like anything unique that y'all are doing, or any, I guess, just any, like, what's something that seems to help a lot in terms of the protections that you're doing for these sites?
So the 2FA is the biggest. I cannot overstate that. Like 99% of hacks are not someone was super clever and like found an exploit and got into the site that way. It's like you used this password somewhere else and they just used it here and it worked. So, if you get that sorted, you are solid. Uh, Add reCAPTCHA to any form, newsletter form, tip form, checkout form, these type of things. It's standard stuff, but it is very important to just have the fundamentals in place, and that'll
Yeah.
cover you 99% of the time.
Perfect. Perfect. So I guess, yeah, and you're just including a lot of this. You're setting this up for people by default. You're not leaving this again. You're like their security team. You're their technical team. So you're providing that foundation by default. And I guess you're doing some education as well, like kind of helping them avoid security mistakes along the way.
Yeah, no, we do provide guidelines. These are, the things that your team should be doing in order to be safe. And it's important because some of these are sites. We have publishers doing reporting where their own government is hostile towards them. Um, we in the last election, to bring it back to that, one of our publishers is the Haitian Times, and after the eating the cats and dogs thing, like their site was under attack just nonstop for 2 months.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So at the WP Cloud level, we do provide some protections, but ultimately it comes down to how sites are configured, how the users are using them. And it sounds like NewsPack is taking great efforts to make sure that all of these sites have a very baseline kind of security package there and all the guidelines to help resist and be secure against lots of attacks like that.
Yeah.
Um,
And one of the other things that has been really helpful towards this is the like all the Jetpack security features. So it's
oh
got the
yeah,
brute force protection, malware scanning. It can, detect and alert if someone manages to sneak some, malware onto the site. So that's fundamental, and we don't have to necessarily do anything special. We just use it, and it works great.
yeah. Jetpack, it also has the SSO. They have kind of tied to Jetpack, but really its own independent product, a Kismet. So I imagine a
Yes.
Kismet's probably a
Yep. Yep.
big
We
part
use
of the
that as well.
package. Cool, cool. So kind of stepping away from that, but keeping some of that in mind a bit, and kind of going back with maybe why news organizations should consider NewsPack. Maybe they aren't right now. So if someone's weren't running a news organization on a generic WordPress hosting right now, so let's just say it's just a standard shared, okay, but not necessarily impressive hosting right now, what's one of at least one thing that they're probably underestimating about their needs, like not really considering.
So, we have a bunch of case studies on the website if you want to poke around it to see the sorts of improvements people have made coming from generic WordPress site to NewsPack. So our features are really designed to save publishers time, to make them more money. We have dynamic segmentation built in. That's not something that you can get out of an out of the box plugin. So you can send targeted messaging to people based on if they're a donor, if they've signed up to the newsletter. You
Mm,
can really fine tune the funnel, and the people that do it well, they essentially double their reader revenue or more over time. Um, you can compose your newsletters and send them directly with the block editor. People save hours a week doing it this way. Uh, like we're really focused on driving measurable results.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, really taking all this technical burden away and allowing them to focus on their service, their news, their relationships with their readers, and kind of
Yeah.
growing and thriving there. Similar, with WP Cloud. Now, obviously, NewsPack has taken it and really customized it, done a lot of the very specific things, technical wise, with your product and so on. But a big part of WP Cloud and why we try to kind of make it a situation where we do a lot of the baseline technical things for you. Now, obviously, you know, new sites are very unique and very high demand, and we've actually made some improvements to the platform based on things we've learned from your team and the partners you work with. But ultimately, one of our goals that we're regularly working on and are mostly they're serving is that we want to take care of all the technical burden for hosts, so that way they can focus on their product and then serve their hosting customers. So we do have a bit of a trickle down thing of these goals that are aligning quite a bit there, and it sounds like it's working overall. It sounds like
No, it
sounds
it
like
has.
yeah,
We don't like recently got a systems guy in our team, maybe a month ago, but for the previous 6 years, we did not need a systems person. We
yeah,
did not need an infrastructure person. Like WP Cloud just like handled it really well out of the box.
yeah, yeah. That's really cool. Going back to considering traffic and big high profile events that these news sites are just going to get. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when a piece of news is going to get viral, maybe when a scraper decides to start hitting their site really hard. We've talked about logging, we've talked about mitigation and planning and stuff like that. Ultimately, some things will fall through the cracks. What kind of, alert do you have? A bunch of alerting set up for this? What are some specific events that you're looking for with that alerting?
Yes, yeah, no, we have a number of alerts. At the most basic one is we have, a service that pings the site every few minutes, and it throws a big alert, text to my phone and everything if it gets a status code that is not 200. So if it's a 500 or if it's a 404 or 50, like anything other than 200, it'll ping the whole team. We also have alerting for CPU usage or for card testing attacks, and these are more proactive.
Hmm.
Ideally, we don't want to respond to things when the
Right.
site is down. We want to catch it before it goes down so we can prevent it in the first place. So we get Slack alerts if CPU usage on a site goes to an uncomfortable level.
Nice. Nice. And I guess we can kind of wrap up some of the technical talk a little bit, but um, kind of bringing together everything we talked about in terms of optimizations and crawlers and CPU usage here. Uh, I know probably crawlers, scrapers, those can definitely be demanding if the pages are uncached. We have talked about the need to optimize certain plugins and database queries, but has there been anything noticeable that you've found that use a lot of CPU um, unexpectedly? So have you examined some sites here recently or any time that and you found? I know you mentioned sitemaps was a big one prior to the election, but is there anything else since you brought up CPU again? So is there anything else like that?
Yeah, I mean, this may be too in the weeds, but it's something I was dealing with earlier this week, which is if you're using WooCommerce, by default, it has that high performance order storage
Mm-hmm.
setting
Yeah.
synchronization enabled. So anytime something happens with an order, it will also like do a bunch of database writes to make it also synchronize to the legacy order system.
Uh,
Um, and especially on high traffic e-commerce sites or in our case, sites that have a lot of members and subscribers, that causes a bunch of CPU load. If you're using all modern like WooCommerce plugins, they have the compatibility. It's not needed.
right.
So we toggled that off. It was instant drop of like 5 CPUs and just like perfect stability.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So that's exactly something a story I was looking for there, and it's a challenge. WooCommerce, which I believe you worked on WooCommerce for some time before NewsPack. Is that right?
I did, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
for about 2.5 years before NewsPack existed, I was on the WooCommerce team working on the plugin, and
gotcha.
we use it for all of our e-commerce capabilities. It's super
Awesome.
flexible. Like it doesn't make sense for us to re-implement it all because it's
Yeah,
a rabbit hole. You get into tax calculations, inclusive tax, exclusive tax, different gateways. Like it's solid foundation. We use it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that specific issue you brought up, that's a challenge of WooCommerce has to solve so many things at once, and it also has to solve for the fact that not all plugins are up to the new greatest performance order storage there. So, but that's definitely a nice find, and that's kind of the tips and things I'm looking forward to getting into in other episodes and stuff too. So, definitely never if we do another episode and stuff. Never feel held back, or excuse me, never hold yourself back in terms of the technical stuff. We can. I think that's a really cool example. So as we kind of wrap up the show, I'm one question, and it's not really completely dedicated to just NewsPack and news organizations. Just looking at the broader WordPress hosting ecosystem. Um, One thing in the show that we talk about is just really identifying the core things of what makes impressive hosting, what makes for a good user experience, and just trying to package all of that together to hopefully have these conversations with people to elevate the bar, elevate the minimum expectations. Because I think for WordPress, for WooCommerce, you know, ideally, I want people to be on NewsPack. I want people to be on WP Cloud. But at the end of the day, too, just thinking about WordPress, WooCommerce, and so on, that whole ecosystem, I think for this ultimate success, this continued growth and continued thriving, we really, want to see hosts be better and reach a higher standard. So with that in mind, and looking at the broader WordPress hosting ecosystem, what should hosts or what should more hosts be thinking about that they're probably not? Or maybe what are some things that they should be doing that they may not be doing?
Yes, so I think observability is a big one. The ability to analyze and determine, which IP addresses are hitting my site, which bots are hitting my site, what requests have slow performance, and then even within that, like what part of this request is this issue coming from? What hook or filter or plugin is causing problems? At least for these more enterprise scale things, that's super important.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, Claudio, thank you so much for joining me again. So folks can learn more about NewsPack over at newspack.com. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Newspack.com. Lots of information there.
Right. And where's the best place to find you?
Find me on LinkedIn, Claudiu Lodromanean. I'm going to be the only Claudiu Lodromanean on there.
Nice, nice. And of course, you can find me at wp.cloud if you're interested in what we're doing over there. If you're just looking for me personally, goode.pro, goode.pro. And of course, you can find this episode and more over at impressive.host. And we'll let Jesse kind of do the roll credits on all the other places to find us. But definitely check out the site and get all the links that you need to find this episode.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Impressive Hosting, where we uncover the core tenets of great WordPress hosting. Do you have a follow-up question for today's guest, thought or comment on anything we talked about, a future guest suggestion, a hosting horror story? What do you think makes WordPress hosting? All your comments shape this show. Drop them on impressive.host. We also appreciate you following us on social media and subscribing to the podcast on your favorite platform. Finally, do check out our list of open source projects that need support at impressive.host. Whether it's code, community, or cache, you can make a difference. See you next time.